and welcome to this episode of The Age of AI, our series covering the rapid evolution of the AI landscape, exploring what's now, what's next, and how that impacts the world of business and the workplace and individuals and the world. I'm your host, Shelley Kramer, and today's conversation is going to center on agentic AI, shocker, since we talk about that all the time, and agentic AI in the enterprise. And we're going to be exploring shifts and risks and the road ahead. My guest today is Ina Tokarev-Sela, who's the founder and CEO of illumex AI. Welcome, Ina.
Thank you so much, Shelley. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. I'm so glad I could convince you to join me. Some backstory. Ina and I's paths crossed. We did a briefing, and I thought her company and what she was doing was so interesting. I twisted her arm and asked her to come and hang out with me on this show. So I'm so glad to have you. All right, I'm going to set the stage here a little bit. Now, AI, of course, is no longer a future concept. It's here. It's reshaping at just an incredibly rapid pace the way enterprises operate, compete, and deliver value. But with unprecedented speed comes unprecedented complexity. The enterprise AI landscape is shifting almost daily, and the rise of agentic AI, autonomous systems that can act, adapt, and make decisions, is naturally pushing us into new territory. So in today's conversation, we're digging into what these changes really mean for business leaders, and we'll talk about the hard data that shows both the promise and the pitfalls of enterprise AI adoption. And we'll unpack why context is the make or break factor for agentic AI, and we'll talk candidly about why so many AI investments are failing. We're also going to explore the role of data readiness and the pivotal role that plays in turning potential on the AI front into actual performance. With that background, what do you say? You ready to go?
I am, when you are.
All right. Well, I always start these conversations by asking my guests to share a little bit about their backstory, their career journey. So let's have it. Lay it on me.
Well, you just challenged me with quite interesting background stories with one of our guests. So I was like, okay, what could be the most interesting job that I did prior to my serious AI days? So I guess my high-paid job in university was actually being a selector in a nightclub. So here we go. Day job, learning algebra and multidimensional geometry and all those neural nets and MATLAB. Night job, selector in nightclub. So yeah, I guess
That's great.
Yeah, that's true. I would say it's an unusual fact about myself. I usually use it in office trivia. But yeah, seriously speaking, I made quite a journey from really starting in enterprise at SAP. And enterprises are just such a great place to really learn and innovate. So I was lucky to work on the cloud journeys of the biggest enterprises in the world, and saw the struggle and challenges to some extent, and solving them with our team at SAP HANA Cloud Platform. And then in the early days of machine learning, I was actually one of the founders of machine learning organization at SAP. And then it was really clear that we have lots of knowledge in organizations, right, and lots of analytics. But how does it translate to machine learning? And it was already very clear that a big gap between what we know, how business should operate, to how business actually operates, to the way that we imagine how business could be automated.
Right.
So I guess my career from enterprise to growth startup Sisense, I led the AI team at Sisense and all forecasting and conversational interfaces to business users. It was actually exhilarating to see the happiness in marketing department when I actually interact with the data and ask questions and see all those projections. So it was a really happy place. And then I decided to start the company because I saw the timing and right, because this intersection of evolving AI, right? So semantic models are not something which happened 2 years ago. It's a much longer journey that this technology took, and
absolutely.
but also neural models and graphs. So also a bunch of patterns in the space of intersection of content and context relationships and neural nets. And it was super exciting to me to actually start a company which automates this connectivity between people, data, business, logic. So this is where we meet each other right now in the context of illumex, my current company.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So interesting. Such an interesting journey. And you make a really valid point, Ina. AI didn't just come on the scene 2 years ago with the launch of ChatGPT or anything like that. I mean, AI has been something that we've been using, whether we realize it or not, across our personal lives and our business lives for a very, very long time. So I think that's an important point there that you made for sure. All right. Well, let's start by level setting. So we're watching AI adoption accelerate at an unprecedented at an unprecedented pace. But what's really fascinating to me is how the enterprise AI landscape itself is evolving. So you have a front row seat to this, Ina. What are the most significant shifts that you're seeing happening right now in the enterprise space? And how should organizations be preparing to navigate those shifts?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Shelley, because AI is dictating us not only to think about this technology as a product feature or something that we can buy, right? But it really makes us think about how it could be the core of our thinking, of our strategy, about our people management, even reinventing ourselves as new revenue engines and new business models. So we do see that AI is kind of shifting from data centers and technical teams to the boardrooms, in a sense. Like it's kind of cheesy to say that AI has a seat in the boardroom, but it really does, in the sense that initiatives that I see in the market are coming from top down. They're coming
Yeah.
from top management at CEO, which has ideas how this technology could be applicable to create new things, new experiences, new models. And I think it's the first technology since internet that actually had this trajectory top down and not bottom up. It's just because
Yes.
internet brought us e-commerce, and now AI, agentic AI, brings us a kind of multimodal experiences that change a lot of things about our workforce, about our productivity, about our relationship with customers. So many changes for sure. So this is what I
Yeah.
see in the ground.
Yeah, and that's what I see as well, and that brings its own set of challenges. First of all, on the AI front, and I believe, AI is not an IT thing anymore, right? And it used to be anything that had to do with technology was driven by IT. This is, as you say, a boardroom issue, a C-suite issue. And I think a lot of that revolves around the need to integrate AI into business operations to stay competitive and to be productive and to be efficient and all those sorts of things. And so IT is looking at one set of challenges, and at a senior level, at a board level, they're looking at business resilience and revenue growth and profitability and operational excellence and all those sorts of things. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the other thing that's a little bit challenging is that, we see across the board that it is those higher level positions within organizations who are most rapidly embracing and using AI. And I think that's a challenge that we see in the industry, is that adoption is often not trickling down as effectively as it could throughout the organization. Do you see that?
I believe there are two reasons to that. I definitely see it resonates a lot with me. So I think with all those LinkedIn posts and press about how highly paid positions are going to be cut by AI because it's where efficiency is, many people just got really intimidated by the fact that AI is coming and might be replacing them. So there is definitely more awareness about upskilling
Yeah.
using AI tools in higher positions, where they can actually afford themselves time to onboard, to get this upskilling, to get educated on possibilities of AI, and actually purchase those tools, right? But when we go to the entry level positions, and especially in positions which we hire for, we do expect our employees kind of bridge the gaps by themselves, right? To bring this technology to be already AI ready, right?
Yeah.
To have their own ideas, not necessarily with some investment from the company side. On the other hand, what I do experience right now is that AI is shifting from niche applications, right? So we saw lots of agents like agent for marketing, agent for sales, and so on and so
Right.
forth. So we do see corporations start to embrace AI on a kind of core level. So AI is coming to core operations,
Yeah.
to access to data for every employee, right? To agents which can give every position to be able to find the information they need, to automate sometimes them themselves. So basically, we do see those implementation cross organization that companies already on board with. I think the latest news were from Walmart. So Walmart is going with a strategy of super agents, when they have so many agents in the organization that they're going to orchestrate them by groups, by functions, to bring clarity. And because you don't want a marketing employee or sales employee to have different answers from two different agents from your CRM system and upsell, and then not being able to trust the answers. So I guess the short answer is everyone should be proactive about engaging with AI to the extent that the company proves that from data protection point of view. On the other side, we do see cross-organizational initiatives to bring AI as infrastructure, as a core for the business, and really make it available for anyone in the organization.
Yeah. You know, I've had a lot of conversations with leaders in enterprises whose responsibility is AI. And one of the most not at all surprising revelations as a result of the conversations that I've had has been that the companies who are the furthest along as it relates to really innovative use of AI and concrete results are the organizations who have said, let's make it available to everyone across the board and really create this sort of sandbox where everyone has access and everyone can play, and the feedback that they get and the use case examples that they get and the suggestions that they get and all of that sort of thing really help drive their success. And so it's been, you know, it's not a surprise, you know, when you make things available to people to dive in and learn. I think that you really enhance creativity within the organization as a whole.
Definitely, creativity sparkles when you touch AI tools. For sure, I think it's a common factor, and we do experience in our everyday life.
Yeah.
What's important in the workplace, because AI couldn't be fired, right? People could. So governance, explainability, ability to have transparency about how answers are calculated, where data is coming from, a single source of truth. So establishing organizational knowledge base, which is non-compromised, right? Really understanding what are the business definitions, processes, terminology that AI should use across organization, and make those experiences not only secure and governed, but also embedded in existing tools, collaboration tools, existing workflows, so people do not really open 25th tab in their browser to do AI, right? So really bring AI to people and make them trust AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how, you know, AI, any kind of technology without adoption is destined to fail. So I think that the more accessible you can make it, the more time you spend helping your team learn and understand, upskill, reskill, and you know, again, I think a lot of this that accessibility helps spur creativity, innovation, a comfort level, and all of that sort of thing. So I think that on the enterprise front, that's a really smart strategy. So I want to look now, Ina, and you know, there's a lot of hype in the market right now as it relates to AI and in general and agentic AI in particular. But when we cut through the hype and we look at the numbers, they tell us where the real momentum and the real challenges are. I believe that you have some insights on what the data shows on the risks and the opportunities in enterprise AI adoption. And share with me a little bit, if you would, what your learnings have been on that front.
Yeah, definitely. So I believe it was above 90% of organizations are going to increase their spend on AI, investments on AI within the next 3 years. So it's vast majority, cross board, across the industries, and so on and so forth. So what we see right now is every company thinks about AI investment in different ways. Some buy off-the-shelf solutions, some buy or build RAG systems, right? So those homegrown co-pilots. Some believe AI belongs to a very scoped actions like self-service checkout, for example, and some believe AI should be implemented as infrastructure and architecture for every organizational system. So across all those investments, we see that Gartner actually says that around 40% of AI investments are going to be discontinued within 2 years. Which means majority, almost half of AI investments are not going to materialize. And this is a really bad ROI for us as an industry, because it can put us to AI winter for a long, long time. It already happened a couple of times. So what we are saying is, what I believe in, is the following. AI is not a shiny toy which sits in the top of your stack. It's not something we interact with. AI is a full stack. AI is quality data. AI is governance, bless you. AI is ability to manage costs. It's transparency about answers and lineage to the underlying sources. So holistic AI makes you actually have full stack implementation from bottom up, from those legacy systems which produce inconsistent data, which should be fixed. Fix the organizational semantics alignment. We hear it a lot. I think semantics, it's already not a technical term for majority of the people. It basically says that every of 50 SaaS system that you're using the different terminology for the same, right? So customer could be addressed as account, could be addressed as vendor, could be addressed for hundreds of different things. And if you do want to have a automation and especially AI agents, you have to align on terminology and definitions and what every entity means to different people in your organization. If you do not have this internal alignment, you cannot really scale. So yeah, it's about alignment, about data quality and governance of the whole process.
Right. So what do leaders need to do, I mean, hearing the stats on, the failure rate is an attention getter. What do leaders need to think about when it comes to future-proofing their investments in AI?
There's plethora of things that could be done already today. And we do see that processes which focus on really this long-term projects, kind of boil the ocean. Let's make AI basically part of our operational databases and then scale to analytics and so on and so forth. They take longer and they frequently de-invested because it's harder to see immediate ROI. What we say is the following. You don't need to say boil the ocean, but you need to use tools which do bring AI readiness to data and semantic alignment, use case by use case. So start with a business case, right? It has to be a business case measurable in short term. So basically within 3 to 6 months, you're already supposed to see business impact. And then when it works, just scale. Just use those tools which can provide full stack for specific use case and then scale them across your whole organization. Because building those foundations without really showing your management and your users what it can do for them, I would say really take this metaphor of building Hadoop and then building those data lakes. Like we all know how it ended. Now we have lake houses, kind of
Right.
making sure we actually use data lakes, which everyone liked 2 years ago. With Hadoop, we already don't see this technology around a lot. So we don't want to have another reincarnation of just a dark swarms of data with AI on top of it that no one uses.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So we talk a lot. I mentioned this when I launched the show. We talk a lot about agentic AI these days here and the changes that we're seeing with this technology. In the context, though, of enterprise operations, we know that this can and is radically reshaping workflows and decision making and even organizational structures. What does agentic AI really mean for the way enterprises will operate in the next few years, Ina?
Wow, it's exciting even to think about that. So
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
like all those creative juices runs, being in this industry for so long, and majority of companies are still struggling to produce decent forecasts, right? So in prediction stage. So what's exciting about AI is that we kind of can skip the stage of prediction for some of organizations and take them forward to the era of automation, to the era of orchestration of different agents, which can create workflows altogether, and to the era where we can actually, as employees, we can manage agents, right? So not only human employees, but also AI agents as
Right.
employees, right? So kind of scale our abilities and productivity with that. So everyone is going to have 40 different helpers to achieve more in their day, and probably skip majority of those tedious tasks. So for me, I'm using AI productivity tools for everything, and I
Sure.
must say I have more evenings at home with my family thanks to that, and seeing beautiful sunsets. We live just next to the beach, so it's a luxury of actually having more spare time. So I couldn't
Yeah.
be more grateful for that. On the bigger picture, let's say organizations should really understand what differentiates them, right? So what AI really means. AI really means that organizations already have their knowledge, their competency about their business. This is what makes companies successful or unsuccessful. So everyone's speaking about data is a new oil. It's not data is a new oil. Your knowledge, organizational knowledge, is the oil, and it's not about faster, bigger models. It's about how you actually manage to aggregate this knowledge, to institutionalize it, to
Yeah.
document it, to govern that, and to make it accessible to AI in the way that it can scale your operations, right? So it's
Yeah.
your knowledge, your business expertise, your know-how, but now with AI being really scaled.
Yeah, and I think that we sometimes don't pay as much attention to that knowledge base that exists within organizations and certainly within enterprises. And even thinking about it from a generational standpoint, we have a multi-generational workforce, and some of those older generations who've been in the workforce for a very long time have deep expertise and knowledge that you want to be able to pass on and pass through the organization. So when you can use AI to help capture that knowledge and share that knowledge, make it accessible, I think it's data is important too. This is a different kind of data, but that knowledge is incredibly important, I think.
That's true. So I do see that more experienced, longer term employees actually have and produce more value with AI
Yeah.
than entry positions.
Yeah.
And I think we all always disqualify our older workforce by kind of, learning slower, or at least like all this ageism which happening in the workplace due to
Right.
technology. I think AI is actually equalizer in the sense.
I agree.
Because more experience you have, you can actually produce more with AI and become more valuable, even more valuable with
Yeah.
AI, right? You have more to say. So it's this there's evidence of this equalizer in the workplace, and I think it's big for us as an industry, allowing us to have a longevity in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
Because it was lots of changes, like you cannot learn this new technology, you're not relevant anymore. This is not with AI. AI changes that.
Yeah. You know, your point is a valid one, and this is something that I see play out across the board. It is actually those employees who are older, who are more experienced, who sometimes seem to more quickly get the value that adding AI into the equation, adding AI into their workday can deliver, and they're like, jumping on that. And so I think, and then when you have, less experienced people in the workplace, I think that, it can be a little bit of a slower learning curve, which kind of is it's the opposite of what we think, right? I mean, I think as a society, we tend to think, oh, those young people, they are really on it. And they are in many ways, especially our digital native generations. But I think that I know for a fact that the research plays out that it is those more experienced users who are really, really diving in and leveraging the benefits of AI. And that's really cool to see. Another thing I thought was interesting, I was reading an article this morning, Ina, talking about adoption and use of AI throughout organizations. And, we've seen in the last year massive layoffs at companies across the world, and attributed to AI and AI replacing roles and things like that. And that's a very understandable fear, I think, that employees have in the workplace. But actually, what this article said this morning, actually what's happening is that organizations are realizing that AI replacing human workers is not necessarily the best path forward. And they're bringing back, in many instances, some of those workers that they let go to work alongside AI. And to me, that's the magic formula. It's about people, it's about technology, it's about, working together and having that human in the loop that really leads to the best results that you're looking for.
So true, so true. Salary is definitely one of the biggest enterprise spend, right? On one side, on the other side, with efficiency, you can achieve so much. But with actually creating more value, the sky is the limit. So there is no ceiling on added value. There is really a kind of limit with how much you can cut. And to your point, this is exactly where organizational institutional knowledge sits within people who are currently, being appreciated more and more, within the sense that this is AI context. We all like to speak about context and reasoning and how GPT-5 is better than GPT-4 because it can reason more and so on and so forth. In organizations, that's fine. Whatever model you use, the biggest reasoning is in people's heads, and being able to critically evaluate the answers from the model and combine different answers in the way that it brings bigger impact is just impossible without those humans.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good thing. So the real magic of agentic AI isn't just in its ability to act, but in its ability to act with the right context. And I know that this is something you and the illumex AI team focus deeply on, Ina. Talk with me about how you define what that context is and why context is so critical for this next wave of agentic AI.
Context is definitely this is something on like every wall in our office has context on it because we believe that this is the biggest factor of AI adoption, to your point. So it doesn't really matter how big or precise or accurate your model is. It's how this model is actually acts on your own data. And data in organizations is imperfect. As we already discussed, every system has faulty data and their own specific language that data is defined. And we always use data modelers, analysts, data engineers actually to translate data to insights, to business intelligence tool, to dashboards and reports. What right now is happening is to really scale AI adoption, not just use a specific table and build small agent in it, but really having agents, workflows, applications based on AI, and AI as in front line of any operation, what organization has to do is to really ground those agents in organizational business logic, in organizational terminology and processes and workflows and metrics and analytics which already exists. So basically, really ground all interaction in very precise way. Right, so do not allow degrees of freedom. We all discuss hallucinations. Hallucinations occur when models do not understand the existing context of conversation, and then they bridge the gap by inventing facts, right? So being able to limit model to very precise context is very important for accuracy, for lack of hallucinations. And then when you do have this context, you can also govern that. What does it mean to have a churn, right? Or upsell, or tier, right? How you define all those business definitions is usually debatable in organizations, right? So perceptions between different people really differ and not necessarily grounded in data. So ability to have this context, a single aligned context, allows really review what gets into AI, what goes into AI, open this black box and say AI will act based on those business definitions. Please, domain experts, those people, on the forefront in the business actions, please verify this is what AI should be learning from, right? Because we assume that data scientists and AI engineers are highly paid, so they will figure it out from data. No, they will not, because data has conflicts. Data has all those conflicting versions of the truth and all these generations of employees, each of them interacted with data in different way. So it will not sell yourself. So governance, semantic alignment, and ability to really document this organizational knowledge and manage it proactively, it allows us not only to trust the answers, but also use all kinds of agents, internal agents, third-party agents, maybe 20 different vendors that are already installed. They all have their own agents. So bring them to the same, I wouldn't say battlefield, playground. bring them to the same playground to actually interact within the same context with the same interpretation. It could be really transformational that finally your SAP talks to your Oracle, to your Salesforce, to your Slack or Teams. It's a real benefit in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can see that. Well, for every success story in AI, we hear about projects that stall or fail to deliver real business value. And in many, many instances, data readiness is at the center of that conversation. From your vantage point, why do so many AI investments miss the mark? And how critical is building the right data architecture before trying to scale AI across the business?
Data is definitely a cornerstone of what gets into AI, right? Even before we start any implementations. So it will definitely define the accuracy of the answers, because this is what we have in our system. Unfortunately, many organizations saw that by just accumulating historical data, the kind of bringing value for the future automations, right? The truth is we have lots of, as an industry, right? We have lots of legacy systems which just produce duplicate data or missing data. So lots of transactions actually not documented, and there are absolutely no deduplications effort. So for organizations to actually use data for AI, they do have to make sure that data is AI ready, not just AI ready, but agentic AI ready, which means not just clean in a sense that values are actually there and not missing, but the data speaks the same language, right? Yeah. So you really have understanding how different variables connect to each other. So not only language, but also relationships. It's kind of a big family. What is the role of each entity? How they play together? What's their history, right? So what different processes they participated together and could be joined, and so on and so forth. So all this, let's say, operations could be defined as business ontology and taxonomy, right? So those kind of very old definition that we used in this old past of graph theory, right? But they're back. The news is they're back, and they're in fashion. And they're in fashion due to the fact that semantic models, which we usually address as agentic AI, are not enough. Context matters. So
Context matters.
the context of a specific variable, let's say apple in the context of agriculture company is part of inventory, and apple in the context of high-tech company should be a class of device, right? So it's very different context, and being able to understand this context gives semantic models, what we refer as AI agents right now, a much hyper-personalized performance, basically, much more accuracy. And this is where illumex operates. Basically, our approach is that we can actually capture knowledge bases, so knowledge corpuses across different verticals and line of business. And this is what we did. We actually learned for retail and manufacturing and healthcare and finance and so on. So first, what is the scope of a language, of business processes, of metrics? And we capture this knowledge, and when we actually build automatically those ontologies for our customers, we look at that data and say, okay, this source is faulty, but we see that there is different candidate for the same variable, let's say Apple, coming from different database. So being able to capture quality data and align it to the business logic, or solve those conflicts between conflicting data, right? So if you have 10 different ways to bring your employee home address from different systems, we can actually say which one should be used. So this ability to marry very separated domains of business and data could be possible with ontologies, and this is what illumex does to automate those business ontologies.
So connecting the dots and speaking the right language. Kind of what it's all
Exactly.
about. Kind of what
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, finally, let's take a look ahead. Ina, if you had to give enterprise leaders one piece of advice as they plan their AI roadmaps for the next, it's funny, I was going to say 2 to 3 years, but you know what? I think that's too long of a time span, right? Things are moving too quickly to look 3 years ahead. But for the next year, 18 months, what would that advice be?
I agree with you. It's very hard to have this crystal ball for 2 or 3 years ahead. So let's focus on 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
So I'm saying that we're almost at this time of 2026 budget planning, and what I would invest if I were in the shoes is basically managing your organizational context, because models will become commodity, right? So do not have Catholic marriage to specific vendor and building this context for specific vendor. You should capture organizational knowledge corpus and actually build guardrails around that. Build your semantic alignment, build your AI readiness component, build your governance component, which includes, of course, biases, control access, all of that. And then you will be in better position to plug into any vendor, really any model, and produce much more scalable results for many more applications and business cases.
Yeah, and really that future proofs, I think, your efforts. Being agnostic about models, understanding that flexibility is the key, understanding that change happens at a really rapid pace. All of that's future proofing.
That is so true. And starting with business cases. So I would not imagine that any organization can really have it in 1 year for the whole organization, but really prioritizing some of the business cases and make sure all those layers exist for specific business cases which generate value within those 6 to 12 months. This is imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of The Age of AI. Thanks so much to my delightful guest, Ina Tokarev-Sela, founder and CEO of illumex AI, for joining me today and for a look at what's ahead on the agentic AI front for the enterprise. And to our viewers and listeners, thanks as always for hanging out with us. And we will see you here next time. Thank you again, Ina.